All right, so we are recording. Go, Anette.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're here to talk about the lack of women in the IMDB top 250 movies list. I actually started doing this project when I was trying to learn this visualization tool during my summer project with Sheri. And I've noticed for myself when I try to find a movie to watch on a Friday night that like at least the top 10 or top 20 movies on IMDb are very male-centric. And I just thought about it a lot, and then I wanted to kind of prove it for myself and others. So I started doing this project, and I'm very happy to present this now. First I want to talk a bit about why representation in movies is important. And I'm going to explain the Bechdel test, which is one of the measures I'll be using for determining whether or not a movie is or contains female characters with some relevance. Then I'm going to present my work and the process, and then my results. And hopefully in the end, we will have some discussion on why things are the way they are and maybe how to change it. So first up, movie representation. So, there we go. Movies can shape thoughts, and I have some concrete examples of this now. The movie Jaws came out in 1979, and the same year, sharks went from being something that no one in America thought about to becoming one of Americans' greatest fears, and this is solely due to the movie Jaws. And in 2012, the movies Brave and Hunger Games came out, both featuring women performing archery. And this same year, female participation in archery doubled in the US. Okay. It's kind of not here. On a more serious note, in the movie Philadelphia from 1993, AIDS and HIV issues are handled in a major Hollywood movie for the first time, and this movie is credited with bringing much more awareness to HIV and AIDS and the LGBT community and how they are affected by it, and has been credited with contributing to funding a cure for HIV and AIDS. So just to reiterate, movies can shape thoughts. That's why propaganda movies exist, because they rally people to a cause that the movie portrays. That's why there are age limits on some movies which contain drugs or alcohol, so children won't be influenced. So what I'm wondering is, how is our perception of the world affected when movies don't reflect reality? And this brings me further along to my next introduction, which is of the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test is kind of a very easy measure of whether or not a single movie contains some female characters of relevance. So for a movie to pass the Bechdel test, it has to pass 3 criteria. It has to feature 2 named female characters who talk to each other about something else than a man. So if a movie features one such conversation between 2 named female characters who talk to each other about something else than men, then the movie overall passes the Bechdel test. And there are a lot of movies who don't pass this test, and now I'm going to just show you a few, all taken from the IMDb top 250 list. And I'm sure most of you know, because you're young people, but the IMDb top 250 movie list is kind of the reigning list on what is considered a good movie according to users on the internet. IMDb stands for Internet Movie Database, and the top 250 list is the highest rated movies on that site, voted by millions of users. So all the movies I'm going to show are from there. So some examples of movies that pass none of these requirements is, for example, The Shawshank Redemption. This is the #1 movie on IMDb, top 250. It has, I don't think it has any named female characters. The plot is in a men's prison. And you're supposed to see Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, but that's
It's lagging a bit, I guess.
okay. Yeah, can you see it?
No, maybe you should go one more and then go back. That worked previously.
Okay.
Yeah, there you
Thank
go.
you. Okay, and Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, which only features Princess Leia as a named female character. Okay, so movies that feature at least 2 named female characters, but they never interact. That is, for example, Forrest Gump and The Lion King. And then some movies that feature 2 named female characters who do talk to each other, but they only talk about men. That's, for example, The Godfather and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And then finally, movies that pass all 3 criteria and therefore pass the Bechdel test overall, because you have to pass all 3 to be able to pass the Bechdel test. Some examples here are The Silence of the Lambs and Die Hard. Okay, so now that you know, I just want what the Bechdel test is. I just want to reiterate that what is the point of the Bechdel test? Is it to determine if a specific movie contains feminist female characters? And that is not the point of the Bechdel test. It doesn't work on only one movie, then it doesn't have any value. It's just an observation. The point is to observe the general trend of women's presence in movies. And that is what I want to do when I look at whether or not the movies on the top 250 list pass the Bechdel test. I'm going to look at the trend overall, not just single movies, because that doesn't make any sense for the Bechdel test. Okay, and then some kind of fussy business on what constitutes passing the Bechdel test. That kind of depends on how a conversation is defined. Does it only have to be 2 lines of dialogue, like hello and hey, or does it have to be kind of a more longer duration? What if a man takes part in the conversation later on, or is in the conversation but is not saying anything? What if the women talk about men indirectly, for example, talking about love? All these questions are kind of hard to answer, and that makes sometimes defining whether or not the movie passes difficult. But we just have to take each movie as it is and try to define some rules. So one example of a kind of a dubious pass is The Dark Knight. I don't know if anyone can think of which conversation in The Dark Knight passes the Bechdel test, because this movie does pass. You can shout it out, but I know it would be impressive because I didn't remember this conversation.
Yeah, or write it in the chat, or just come online and if anyone remembers what that conversation is.
I assume none of you do, because it's not that memorable, but the conversation that makes this movie pass overall is between 2 women on the phone, where I think one of the women is the wife of the chief police officer or something, and they talk to each other on the phone kind of normally, and this does pass the test. But as it happens, one of the women on the phone are held at gunpoint by a man the entire time and being told what to say. And so it does pass the test, this movie, but it's kind of not in the spirit of the Bechdel test, because it's kind of entirely all the dialogue is kind of mouthed by a man before. So that's an example of how it's kind of can be hard to define what passes and doesn't. And another example is of a kind of a weird pass is The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. This is the only movie that of the trilogy of Lord of the Rings that passes the test. The 2 others do not, but this one does. And again, if anyone can remember which conversation makes this movie pass, or just which characters are involved, you can just guess at characters in The Two Towers that are involved in this conversation. But I think
there are any Lord of the Rings fans here.
Yeah, I feel like there will be more Lord of the Rings fans. I think I've done this a few times before, and all the times people have actually guessed the conversation, and that's very impressive. I thought no one would be able to.
Yeah.
Oh.
But there are some fans here.
Okay.
You can
Let's
take a
hear.
guess.
Yeah. Guess.
I think it's something in a cave at the end of the movie or something. Right?
You're right.
There's an older woman speaking to a younger woman or something like that.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, don't be afraid.
Elizabeth is in the chat is also saying the kid and Eleanor.
Yeah, you're both right. It's
that was more precise than mine.
this scene. Okay, I don't understand why everyone gets this. I thought this would be like the hardest question to answer, because the one in the chat also knew the name of the woman.
Eleanor. I guess.
Yeah, so that's impressive. But the point was supposed to be that we don't remember their names, but then my point kind of fell exactly there. But you don't maybe remember the kid's name, I hope, because then my point still stands. That they are. Oh. I think the kid's name was Frida or something. But the point is that these are not central characters, so it does pass the test, just kind of by accident maybe, because the names are named in the movie, but it's doesn't mean that like any central characters are female, though they are in Lord of the Rings. They just never meet. But okay, next slide. So now I just presented what I will be using to assess the top 250 movies on female representation. I will use the Bechdel test, and I will also use a data set on how much male dialogue there is in a movie compared to female. So 50-50 would be like completely balanced. And I just want to show you the benchmark of how the average movie does in terms of these measures. So about 42% of movies overall are shown to fail the Bechdel test. It can sometimes also be up to 50, but I'm going to go with the 42% fail the Bechdel test, 58% pass the Bechdel test. And for dialogue, the average movie has 78% male dialogue and 22% female dialogue. And this is, I think, already very shocking. It's not my work, but I think that in and of its own is
skewed,
very big disparity, which I'm not even going to talk about because it's not what I did. But so that's kind of my benchmark, which I will compare the movies of the top list to. Okay, over to my work and what I have gathered. I wanted to investigate female representation in IMDb top 250 movies lists because I saw for myself that there weren't very many women in the top movies. So I wanted to find out what kinds of movies are perceived as the best according to public vote, which IMDb is, and how does this list affect our perception of what kind of stories we think of as valuable. And that's kind of a hard question to answer. I don't think I have an answer to it, but hopefully we can kind of discuss in the end. So my main data sources was, of course, the top 250 list on IMDb. I scraped that in the summer, so it's not completely up to date, but it's I think it's pretty accurate. Then I used Bechdel test ratings from bechdeltest.com, which is a website where users assess movies on whether or not they pass the Bechdel test. So I can I checked both. I got both general pass or not pass, and I also got the which criteria they didn't meet, like more refined-grained, but whether or not they passed. And then I used the data set that I talked about a bit before with the dialogue percentage, that's male versus female. So this is the data I'm working with. It has 250 rows, obviously, a lot of columns, but I didn't use that many of them. You can see from the rating range that the movies on the top with the highest ratings, there are very few of them, and then there's more movies with the lower ratings, so that's like lower 8s range. And the average movie has 500,000 votes. The lower bound for inclusion on the IMDb top 250 list is 25,000 votes, which is still a lot. Almost all the movies, 234 have the Bechdel test rating, and a bit over half of movies have data on male-female dialogue. So this is what I'm working with. This is kind of a distribution of how the list looks like in terms of in terms of stats. So the most movies are from the US. The biggest genre is drama, followed by action and crime. And I would say it's the movies are quite heavily newer, like 90s, 2000s, 2010s, compared to older decades, but it's still kind of varied, I think. So a typical movie is an American drama from 1994, which stars Robert De Niro. And he was very significantly in very many movies that is on this list, Robert De Niro. He was by far the most popular actor in movies on this list. Okay, over to my results. Then I'm going to change share if I can. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how these 250 movies did compared to the benchmark. If you remember, on which was 42% did fail the Bechdel test, and 78% average male dialogue compared to female. But for the IMDb, it's an even bigger disparity. If I just move the unrated ones, you can see that almost 2/3 of the movies on IMDb fail the Bechdel test. So that's the difference from 42% failing to 64% failing. I think that's a clear indication that my hunch about not the IMDb list not being for or by women is correct. And if we see it in a more kind of defined way, we can see that the majority of movies that don't pass, they don't pass because women don't. There are more than 2 named female characters, but they never speak to each other. And only about 11% have interactions where women only talk about men, and that's kind of nice because that means the Bechdel ratings are kind of less dubious, because a lot of where the controversy is on whether or not a movie passes is here in how they talk. So overall, it's a very big difference on the IMDb top 250 compared to the average movie when it comes to passing the Bechdel test. And if we go on to view male versus female dialogue, the median movie on IMDb has 83% male dialogue and 17% female dialogue. And that's also a much more, or significantly more than the 78%, which is the average movie. And the top 10 is even worse. Then 11% of the female dialogue, or the dialogue, is female, and the rest is male. And that was kind of what I saw when I started investigating this. So there you go. And here you can just stop me if you want to see anything, because here we can see all the movies plotted by IMDb rank from 1 to 250, and how much men talk in on the y-axis. So 1 means 100% male dialogue, and yeah, you can see it's very heavy at the top. I think the movie with the least male dialogue is Inside Out, yeah, with the 36%, but it's very top heavy, especially in the beginning, which we saw from this. I'm just gonna, you can stop me if you want to see any particular points, but yeah. Okay, so overall it is a very, it is much more male centric than the average movie, the top 250 IMDb. And I also wanted to find a bit out about what kinds of movies are more male centric versus not. Here we can see how the passing of the Bechdel test is compared to different genres. We can see that animation does quite well with equal passes and non-passes of the Bechdel test. Horror does very well. but it's a small sample size. And drama does surprisingly bad, even though they're often known to have more women in them. So, and you can stop me if you want to check out something particular. But I've also found something interesting, that it appears to be more of a Western issue. If you watch the US, Italy, Germany, the UK, they all have very high fail rates of the Bechdel test compared to pass rates, while South Korea and Japan and India are much more even. So I thought that was interesting, but that might also have to do with the fact that the movies that are from those countries that appear on this list are already like the best, kind of the movies that are, the people who view those movies are maybe more open-minded than the people who just view movies from their own country. And then this is kind of key. Does it show signs of improving with time? According to the Bechdel passes versus fails, it kind of seems like it does improve over time. You can see the 2010s is the first decade that has much more passes than fails. So this kind of looks promising, though I have a little theory that I can't prove, is that the companies that make movies, just now they know that the Bechdel test is a thing, and they just put some conversation in with two women just to pass the test, just to like check it off their list. And I can't prove it, but I kind of feel like this would be something they would do. And then we can see that if we plot how much men speak compared to women over time, then it doesn't seem to be that big of a betterment in the 2010s. As you can see, it goes from predicting in 1940 83% of male dialogue compared to female, and in 2016 it's 78%. So that's over 80 years. That's a decrease of 5%. And I don't think that's fast enough. And then finally, I tried to find out a bit why this difference was so large. And I found that votes were overwhelmingly made by men. 84% men voted on average on a movie compared to 16% women. And the final thing I'll show you is something I found very interesting, and this is that here I have plotted the rating that only women give, so only women have voted, and I plotted their rating on movies on the y-axis. On the x-axis I have plotted the portion of male dialogue. So here male dialogue is basically 100%, and here it's inside out with the least amount of male dialogue. And I didn't find any trend here. There wasn't really a correlation. And this is female rating, but if we look at the same thing for male rating, then it appears to be a much higher correlation between a high amount of male dialogue and a high male rating. So you can see there are many movies here on that are considered the top tier, but there aren't that many when the amount of female dialogue is bigger. So this was kind of cool too. Okay, that was my main results. You can just, if you want to see something else, you can just stop me, but I'm gonna go back to my
Anette, I'm just going to read a question here. Yeah. Although we didn't do it, it's good to just note. So someone's asking if we did any analysis on the gender of the director of the movies. Is there any correlation between female representation in the movie and gender of the director? Or are there no female directors in the top 250?
There are very few, I think, at least. That's I didn't do any research on that. But
it should be quite easy to see. I mean, if we just want to check it out, right? In the columns, you probably have.
I think there would be like
very few, right? When we were scrolling the data. It's very few, I think.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be kind of significant, like we couldn't do much about it when it's only like three movies, then it's kind of not doesn't have the same statistical toll.
You also looked at the main actors, right?
Or that was just kind of more interesting IMDb thing, that the IMDb kind of information that you could get into on each movie had 3 main stars, and so it was like star 1, star 2, star 3, and star 1 and star 2 were always male, and star 3 was always female. So they were like, it was just a weird way that IMDb
puts them in this ranked.
It kind of felt like that way, but
it's weird.
But that would be really interesting to check out.
All right,
okay, back to the PowerPoint if there are no more questions.
There is a question: have you seen all 250 movies? I guess
I haven't seen all, and I kind of given up, and I won't either, because as you may realize, I don't really like this list.
So we have a better recommendation, right, at the end of what people should see.
I have just some of the movies that I like, and I think we also just found out that because another person at another
previous presentation
asked me if there were any other correlation when on Metacritic, how Metacritic rated the movies that IMDb has on their top 250 list. And I found that Metacritic, which is like the sum of all critics that have critiqued the movie, but they were much more balanced when it came to recommending movies with more gender balance and less men in the leads and men doing the talking. So Metacritic, maybe critics are the way to go, and just not only listening to the IMDb voters.
So another question: does the IMDb list also include movies from streaming services such as Netflix? Yes, I mean, if they are on Netflix, they might appear on the top 250 list, but we also know that IMDb ratings are always on Netflix, so that you can you're kind of being recommended to watch these if they have an IMDb rating there.
Yeah, that's central. That Netflix and Viaplay and very many streaming sites have the IMDb rating as kind of the answer for whether or not a movie is worth watching. That makes this even more important if it's biased in some way.
All right, so let's continue. The final one here was that male ratings were very correlated, right, with male dialogue.
Yeah, much more at least. It's not like I think it was a correlation of 12% versus a positive versus minus 3% for female rating and male dialogue.
Yeah.
So it's a much higher correlation for men. Okay. Then over to some discussion. You might think, what if women just vote more? Because we saw that women only voted, had 16% of the votes.
Oh, we didn't look at that, Anette. I think you...
Did we?
Did you? Or maybe, okay, sorry. Maybe I didn't.
Okay, and I'm just telling you, it was just a pie chart, so I can just tell you now. It's women voted 16% had 16% of the votes, and men had 84, I think.
Yeah.
So if women vote more, maybe the movies will be less biased towards men. But here you can see the top 10 movies according to all the women. So this is only women votes. This is the top 10. And you may, for those of you who are familiar with the top 10 IMDb movies, you can see that a lot of the movies that were on the original top 10 is also on this female voted top 10. There are only 2 movies, you can see Life is Beautiful and Lion King, which don't in some way appear on the original top 10 movies. You can see the official rating there. So it seems to me here that we have already been told what is considered good, what is considered a good and valuable movie and an interesting story. and we have kind of adapted to that on the IMDb. So I think we have to, it doesn't really help that much if women just vote more, because we've already been told that what is considered profound and valuable in storytelling is male-centered movies. So I think both men and women will upvote those kinds of stories, because people want to, like, I want to like what is considered good. So yeah, so the question then is, what can we do to change this? And I don't really know, but I think that just starting to be more aware of our bias towards prioritizing male-centered movies over female-centered movies might help. And I think the way we can challenge these biases is by just watching more movies with and by women. So I just came up with 4 that I really like here, but there are countless more, so you can find some for yourselves. And I think, yeah, then my final piece of advice then is just don't use the IMDb top 150 list as your only source of information when it comes to what is a good movie. So that was what I had.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Anette. Really good presentation again. So we just would like to invite people to come online now if you're kind of reacting to any of this, or if you think it will help to get more females to vote, or anything that you're thinking of. So Alexandra, I think I see your hand is up.
Well, I was doing a clap, a virtual clap.
Oh, okay, you're doing a clapping. Sorry.
I really enjoyed this conversation, and there's a lot of important insights. So thank you very much. One of the comments that I noted down, because one of the movies that performed really well was Inside Out in terms of female dialogue. But it's a little bit interesting because that all the female sort of characters are the emotions of women. They're all female characters. So it's a little bit maybe stereotypical about women being emotional.
Yeah, and just think that the Inside Out, that was the movie with the most female dialogue. It had 36% male dialogue. So is that 64% female dialogue? Hard math.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And that, like, but the average movie had much more male dialogue than the movie with the least amount of female dialogue. Like the average movie had 83% male dialogue.
Yeah.
And so there's so few movies which have women speaking more than men on the IMDb. It's crazy.
Yeah, you can also maybe mention here, Anette, that we've mentioned it before in our presentation, this studies that show how we perceive women and men talking.
Yeah, it's there has kind of been a myth that women speak much more than men, and this really studies show that this isn't the case. But when people, both men and women, view a balanced conversation between a man and a woman, where the woman and the man speaks as like the equal amount of words for an equal amount of time, both men and women perceive the woman to be controlling the conversation, while they also perceive the man to don't take that much room. So we are just primed to think that women speak more than they should.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but yeah, that's what the studies show, at least.
That was also something that I'd commented to Robert when you said that 78% of male dialogue, and compared to the stereotype that women are always talking.
Yeah.
Okay, any more comments or any more thoughts? I really wanted it to be easy, or the solution for us women to just go and vote more. But I kind of agree with Anette also that, well, we see that it doesn't really help, and yeah, maybe we're just primed to think that those kind of stories are better stories. I don't know. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
We can also just show the thing that we kind of skipped for this.
Yeah, you should include that.
If we can get out of this. No. Okay.
I think you've hidden it, so you kind of, yeah, there you go.
This is just this just shows for those that may not be completely what's it called? May not be completely caring about this, that passing the Bechdel test also makes the movie earn more money. So you can see here that in my data, the movies that pass the Bechdel test, the 34%, they make 47% of the earnings. And they take, so it makes sense also in a business perspective to feature women and pass the Bechdel test, because women are, I think, 51% of cinema goers compared to men, who are 49%.
Yeah, and this is also comparable to the data we see with females in leadership roles in businesses and also on boards. So yeah, I think that was also interesting that it's comparable. So Helena, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me. Now I almost forget the point that I wanted to make about the money. Is that because they, did you know, or do you have any guess about whether it's a causal correlation there, or so that they earn more because they have the female dialogue, or is it sort of, it can't be random because there's too much of a correlation, but do you have any ideas or guesses about that?
I know that other research has determined the same thing, so I'm not the only one that has gotten this result. Yeah. It's a very common result to get. I think it is known in the movie industry that female viewers are worth a lot if they're catered to. It is worth, I think it has a higher worth than the male viewers, as they make up more of the cinema goers and movie seers. But I don't think I can establish a causal relationship. But it is kind of a known thing that that passing Bechdel test also is associated with the movie making more money.
Yeah. Because I'm wondering if it could be sort of a solution or an idea to invent something that is a bit stricter than the Bechdel test, to sort of get them to pass this test instead, which is then requiring, I don't know, 30% female dialogue or 40% female dialogue, or having some stricter test, which could like get them in the right direction. But yeah, it's just an idea. So
yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah. We could kind of, that could, like that could happen, I guess,
if they're looking at those ratings to make their movies better because they know they will earn more money, then money is always a good driver for change. So then if they know that if they pass this new test, it's called the Sandvik test just for fun, and just say, okay, if they pass this, then suddenly they will earn more, and they know that, then they might just change what they do.
Yeah, that's, if enough people care, I think that could actually happen. And I think going for dialogue is a very smart way to do it, because then I think that's where the difference is the highest. And I don't think we can't say that a single movie is bad based on its Bechdel test failing or passing, but I think we can kind of judge a movie more by it only having male characters, or at least, for example, the top 10 IMDb. But yeah, no, that would be great if that happened, but I'm not sure I have the reach for.
Yeah, we should make the Sandvik test. No, but that's, yeah, I agree, it's a great idea. And I guess just talking about it and creating awareness might make a new test, or something that the industry will care more about. I think also the streaming services have a lot of power in how they kind of rate. And if they start using some other metrics than just the IMDb, I think it will have a huge impact.
Yeah, true.
Totally.
Yeah, that could be a way to actually just call Netflix and make them not.
We were also discussing, we haven't done it yet, but we should look into how we can do that. But we think we hope that maybe new series are better, because a lot of people just watch series now. So maybe we should check that out in addition to movies, Anette. So hopefully we can hope that it's better in the series world, but I'm not sure.
No, me neither. I'm sure it depends on, but maybe it might be. I think it might be. I can investigate. That can be my next project. Can be investigating the series.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no more questions or comments, I think we're ready to conclude. Anyone else want to say something before we log off? No? Okay, thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Really, yeah, we really appreciate your time and being able to present this. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Anette and Sheri.
Yeah, thank you for coming. It was fun.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.